So today we start Advent, and I think Advent is really like the most misunderstood season of the church year. Because if I ask people like, what's Advent about? I will get a myriad of vague answers, right? Some people are like, well, it's the period of time before Christmas, which is not incorrect. Others will say it's a time of preparation for the baby Jesus, or something like that, right? Others will say it's the small Lent. But here's the thing. Advent, just like all the seasons of the church, help us balance our spiritual lives out, because we all have biases of what we want to do. If you were here on Thanksgiving, you learned that some people's bias is to go ahead and be thankful all the time but never be introspective. Other people's biases is to be introspective all the time and never get around to doing anything. Right? We all have different spiritual biases because we all have different ways in which we are comfortable engaging in the world and ways in which we're not. But part of what the church year does is help us spiritually balance. Always like to say, I usually do this in relationship to Lent, is if you never reflect on yourself and your actions and your internal world, you become shallow eventually, right? And if you reflect too much on your internal world, you just become weird, right? We've all met people on either end of that spectrum. That's why Lent calls us to be introspective for a period of time and then tells us, come Pentecost, go do. But what about Advent? What are we supposed to be doing in Advent? How does this play into it? Well, Advent always starts a little after Thanksgiving and continues until Christmas, right? And so what we are supposed to do during Advent is hope and dream and think of how things could be better. Now, I'll tell you, hoping and dreaming is something I think a lot of people struggle with. The church struggles with it, society struggles with it, all sorts of folks struggle with it. Now, most of you are saying, no, hold on, I dream all the time. I dream about what would happen if I won the lottery. Okay, there's a difference between dreaming and fantasizing. Okay, I will walk around to my wife and I'll say, when I win the lottery, what I'm going to do, mostly to the house, is get this fix, this fix, this fix, and this fix, right? And then my wife eventually, when she's tired of hearing my list of ideas of things that I'm never going to actually get around to, she will turn to me and say, honey, you playing the lottery yet? And I'll go, no, I don't want to lose all my money. And that's my cue to realize I'm not actually dreaming, because you can't win a lottery, you don't play. What do I mean? Well, Advent was this idea that one of the core parts of Judaism, which is what Christianity comes from, that is our mother, what we come from, has this great driving force, a force of hope and awaiting the Messiah. Now, as Christians, we believe the Messiah is here, has come and done what Messiahs do and will come back. And so we saw, as you read the Old Testament, how this idea of hope, this idea of if we just keep taking another step, no matter how good or how bad, whether or not we're in slavery or freedom, whether or not we have a country or not, whether or not we've been exiled to Babylon or not, just keep marching forward, there will be a better day. There is this core idea of hope. And it is hope in which gives strength. Not a hope of some unicorn in the sky, but hope of something very real, very good, very there. The God they walk with each day will incarnate someday. We as Christians know that incarnation came as Jesus Christ. And that the Jesus we walk with each day brings us hope that the next day will be better. What do we do during Advent? We start a process that is ever going because the year is a circle. We start the process by saying, what out there in our individual lives, in our family lives, in our work lives, in our societal lives, in our civic lives, whatever, pick a category, annoys us. Or we look at it and say, oh my goodness, this is broken. You find one of those things. You don't fantasize about, well, we surely could do better. No. You start off with, we surely could do better, and a better incremental idea to make this better is XYZ. Now, as a guy who loves making incremental ideas of how to make things better, I will tell you the problem, the challenge is you go out there and you say, this is broken. And you'll get a lot of people to agree with you, right? It's not hard to get people to agree with you things are broken, regardless really what you're talking about, right? But then you say, we could do this hard thing or do this different thing. And what do you get back? More often than not, you get the opposite of hope. You get skepticism. You get the person who goes, well, you clearly don't know how things work around here. You clearly don't understand the real world. That will never work. Well, things never work until they do. Everything starts off as a new idea at some point. The world was that way until it wasn't. Part of what we do as Christians in Advent is we look for those realistic ways to make our world better. What is the world we want to see? How do we want our family to be better? How do we want our church to be better? How do we want our nation to be better? Not for me to answer, it's for me to ask, and for you to ask God. Once you start to put together that dream of where you're headed, where you feel God is calling you to, then you get a respite with Christmas where you get to celebrate. But you know what comes right after Christmas is Epiphany. Once you have the idea of what is wrong and how you want to make it maybe better, you hope for an epiphany of a path forward. Once you have a path forward, you head into Lent, which is where you look inside and you say, what is blocking me from this path forward? What can I remove or what can I do? And then you have your longest season, the one where I wear green until last week. Pentecost, where you do. And of course, you get another celebration, a time of relaxation with Easter between the two. See, part of Advent is a conversation with an entire year. A conversation about dreaming, planning, exploring, and doing. And then you do it again. Why? Because we as Christians realize we are both saint and sinner. None of us are perfect, and none of us are completely lost. All of us are simply works in progress. And the year, every season, helps us make sure we keep progressing, keep growing, keep making the world a little bit more loving, a little bit more caring, a little bit more compassionate of a place. One person, one family, one nation, one idea at a time. So as you go out this Advent, as you all know, I like to send you out with something to do. Take a few minutes in your prayer life and ask yourself, what is that dream? You, your family, neighborhood, your society, your work, whatever. What's that dream that God has given to you, how to make the world